Naruto sat on the couch in his house barely reading the book in his hands. He wasn't in the mood to read. Yesterday Agaya, his nurse for 5 years, had left to the capital to get married and start a new life. He wanted to be happy for her, but no matter how hard he tried he just felt sad. She had informed him 2 weeks ago of her plans, and needless to say he did not handle it well. After some crying, yelling and locking himself in his room, he had talked to her and worked it out, but now here he was alone. To make matters worse, his Gigi had informed him that his Anbu guardians would also be getting reassigned to normal Anbu duties. That one hurt less because all of them promised that they would come by and visit him when they had the spare time. So here he was all alone in an empty house with nothing to do. He was broken from his thoughts when someone knocked on his door. Placing the book down, he walked to it. Who is it? It's me, Naruto-kun. A smile spread across his face as he flung the door open. Hi Gigi. The boy wrapped his arms around his grandfather figure's legs, making the man chuckle as he rubbed the boy's head. Hello to you too, Naruto-kun. May we come in? The boy let go of Hiruzen and looked past him to see a man standing behind him with a small smile on his face. He was wearing the normal Jonin attire Naruto had seen in the village, but had the cloth of his headband unfolded to be a full bandana over his head. Naruto also noticed he had a blade attached to his hip. He stepped back and gave a quick bow, like Agaya had taught him to do when meeting people older than him. Hello, I am Naruto Uzumaki. Hayate was slightly shocked at the boy's reactions. He knew that the Hokage was like a grandfather to him, so the hugging he wasn't surprised by, but the polite introduction was different. It is nice to meet you, Uzumaki-san. I am Hayate Gecko. It is nice to meet you, Gecko-san, and you can call me Naruto if you would like. The man nodded. Naruto smiled and stepped out of the doorway so the two men could enter. While they walked past, Naruto noticed the large scroll on Hayate's back. Curious, he closed the door and followed the men to the living room and sitting in a chair across from them. How are you today, Naruto-kun? I'm okay, he said with a sad smile on his face. I know it's hard, Naruto, but you will get through it. I know, Gigi. Hayate had a small coughing spell and Naruto looked at him in concern. Do you need anything to drink, Gecko-san? The man waved Naruto off. It is fine, I have a chronic cough. Nothing life-threatening, but I cough constantly. Naruto-kun, I came here today for 2 reasons, the first of which involves this scroll here. Hiruzen stood and held out his arms for the scroll from Hayate. After receiving it, he walked around the table and handed it to Naruto. What is it? That, Naruto, is a scroll with multiple storage seals on it. Every known scroll belonging to your family in Konoha is sealed inside that scroll. The boy's eyes widened and he quickly dropped to the floor and unrolled the scroll. Every few feet there was the same seal and he looked at it confused. Hiruzen chuckled and walked around to Naruto's side and bent over, placing his hand on the seal and channeling chakra. Naruto watched amazed as the seal glowed, and suddenly there was a small pile of scrolls stacked where the seal had been. That's amazing, Gigi. How did you do that? The aged Hokage smiled and placed his hand on Naruto's head. That, Naruto-kun, is something known as Fuinjutsu, a skill your family was very well known for. The boy's eyes sparkled with curiosity and wonder. Really? So can I learn how to do that? Of course, like I was saying, in this large scroll and dozens of these smaller scrolls and a few big ones. Each of them should have different techniques and jutsus of all varieties. Naruto's jaw hit the floor when he heard that, and he quickly started to push the large scroll open. Hurry, Gigi, get them all out so I can start training to become the strongest ninja ever. I'm sure you will, Naruto, but hold on, I need to explain something about these scrolls first. You see how they all have these clasps on them? Well, each one has a special seal on it called a blood seal. It keeps people not related to the one who sealed it from opening it. Naruto had picked up one of the scrolls as Hiruzen explained about them and looked at the clasp with curiosity. So only I can open it. That's right, Naruto. You just have to put some blood on it and the clasp will unlock. Naruto quickly started looking around the room for something sharp, but when he didn't see anything he turned towards the kitchen. Hiruzen grabbed him by the collar of his shirt before he got 2 steps away and sat him down. Hold on, Naruto-kun, I don't need you bleeding all over the house just yet. The blonde scratched the back of his head and grinned. Sorry, Gigi, I just got really excited. I understand, but before we start unsealing everything, let me tell you the other reason I came here today. Hayate had been watching the scene before him with an amused grin. The boy seemed smart and quickly grasped things in his opinion. His drive to learn also seemed high. Good qualities to have for a shinobi, but he would have to work on the boy's patience some. When Hiruzen mentioned the other reason, Hayate sat upright knowing it was his turn. Now then, I know you are sad that Agaya-san and the Anbu won't be living with you anymore, but I have asked Hayate here to start helping you train to be a shinobi and with anything in your family scrolls you need help with. Naruto looked up at Hayate with a mixture of feelings. While happy someone was willing to help train him, he didn't like the idea of suddenly staying with a stranger. He was very weary of people. Every time he walked through the village or went to the park, he would hear the whispers about him and the cold glare from adults. He had asked Agaya and the Anbu why people were like that to him, but they never gave him a straight answer. Hayate saw the confusion playing out in Naruto's eyes, decided to try and ease the boy's mind. I know this is sudden, Naruto, but I promise you if you give me a chance, it'll help you become the greatest shinobi ever. Naruto looked unsure but glanced over to Hiruzen, who smiled and gave Naruto a nod. He decided if his Gigi trusted the man, he could at least give him a try. Okay, Gecko-san. Hayate is fine, Naruto, he said between coughs. Hiruzen smiled and clapped his hands to get their attention. Wonderful, now then, Naruto-kun, why don't you gather up all of these scrolls and we'll head into your library and sort them all out. Naruto smiled and quickly gathered up all of the small scrolls while Hayate rolled up the large one and followed the others down the hall. Soon they came to a pair of sliding doors and Naruto used his free hand to push them apart. They revealed a large open room with bookshelves and racks for scrolls to be placed in. Only one bookcase had anything on it and Hayate assumed they were Naruto's. A beautiful dark wooden desk sat near the back of the room and had a small lamp on it. Alright, Naruto, I'm not sure if you noticed, but each of those scrolls have different color bands on them. I saw 4 different colored bands among all the scrolls. Before you ask, I have no idea what they mean, so we will have to wait and see. Now I will begin unsealing them all while you and Hayate separate them by color, okay? Naruto nodded and started to grab scrolls from the ones already unsealed. They had red and blue bands, so he picked a shelves and started their piles. For half an hour this was the pattern. Hiruzen sat at the desk unsealing while Naruto and Hayate moved the scrolls to their specific shelves. The last seal housed only one small scroll with a gold band and the Uzumaki crest printed on it. Hiruzen placed it on the desk and began to roll up the large scroll. I believe that one should be opened first, Naruto-kun. The boy nodded and started towards the scroll but stopped. Is it okay if I read it alone, Gigi? The man nodded and pulled a kunai from beneath his robes. After laying it on the desk, he and Hayate walked out of the room and slid the doors shut. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked around the desk and hopped up onto the chair so he could grab the kunai and scroll. He sat down and carefully cut his thumb so it bleeds just enough to open the scroll. He placed the kunai back on the desk and swiped his thumb across the clasp. After a glowing of red for a second, the clasp unlocked and Naruto carefully unrolled it. To whom it may concern. Greetings, I am Kenshin Uzumaki, current leader of Uzushiogakure and the Uzumaki clan. I am writing this letter because we have received reports of a possible attack on the village in the near future. I have decided to send away all of the clan's knowledge in case the attack is as serious as our spies believe. If you are reading this, I am sorry that we failed and Uzushiogakure is no more. I am happy to know our knowledge and clan will live on with you. I'm sure you noticed each of the scrolls have different bands around them. I have done this so you can keep them organized. Red bands are for Fuinjutsu. Blue for ninjutsu, this includes genjutsu and medical ninjutsu. Black bands are kenjutsu and taijutsu scrolls along with the workout plans for training the body, and finally green are clan laws and traditions. The scrolls are also written so that the smallest scrolls should be read first. They hold the training and lower level skills. Read the scrolls and follow their instructions carefully. No one ever became powerful by rushing. Only through hard work and patience will you become a proper shinobi and Uzumaki. I advise you to read through the red-banded scrolls first. Fuinjutsu is one of the hardest skills to learn, but many of the starting exercises will help with the other skills. Along with them, start with the black scrolls. They will improve the body while also teaching you control and patience. The blue scroll should not be attempted until you have a good enough level of chakra control. You will find that after you complete a certain scroll in Fuinjutsu, I advised beginning your ninjutsu lessons. The green scrolls should be read during your training breaks or free time so you improve the mind while your body rests. While I am sorry I cannot be there to help you in your life, I have faith that you will use our knowledge to remind the world of the Uzumaki's power. Kenshin Uzumaki. Naruto broke into tears by the end of the letter. He wished he could have known the man or anyone in his family. He decided right then that he would learn everything in these scrolls and honor Kenshin's request to remind the world of the Uzumakis. Quickly rolling the scroll up, he pulled open the middle desk drawer and put the scroll there. He used his sleeve to dry the tears from his eyes and headed out the door. He found Hiruzen and Hayate sitting in the living room talking, but as soon as he entered they turned to him. Hiruzen walked over to him and noticed the red around his eyes from crying. Is everything alright, Naruto-kun? The boy nodded quickly. Yes, Gigi, it was a letter from someone named Kenshin Uzumaki. He said he was the last leader of the clan and Uzushiogakure. He explained about the bands on the scrolls and other stuff. Hiruzen nodded and pulled the boy into a hug, feeling Naruto return it in full. Well, this has been an exciting day, how about we go get some ramen? Naruto smiled up at him and raced for the door. Last one there has to pay. The older males laughed and slowly followed the boy into town. Uchiha compound Fugaku sat at his desk looking over some of the reports his men had found on the clans. In the past few years they had slowly infiltrated all of the different branches of Konoha and had found a great deal of information out about anyone who could pose a threat. His greatest triumph though was his oldest son Itachi. The boy was a prodigy unlike any other. Only 10 years old and already an accomplished chunin with the possibility of becoming a jonin or even anbu within the next year or two. Excuse me Fugaku-san, but are you busy? He looked up to see one of the clansmen in his military police uniform and waved him in. Of course Setsuna, come in. The man bowed and walked in, closing the door behind him. Sir, as you requested, myself and others on the force have kept our ears open for news on the Uzumaki boy. Well, today I was eating at the ramen stand he frequents and saw him with the Hokage and another shinobi I did not recognize. What did he look like? He wore a standard jonin outfit, a blue bandana-style headband and had a katana with him. I'm not sure myself, but I will have someone look into it. Did they say anything of interest? The man broke into a huge grin. The boy was going on and on about starting his shinobi training and how happy he was about some scrolls. Fugaku's grin matched Setsuna's as he leaned back into his chair. Excellent work, Setsuna. I was going to start Sasuke's training soon anyways, so this will be the perfect time to introduce the boys. If there is nothing else to report, you can leave. I have plans to make. The man bowed and left the office quickly. Let's see, I can have Makoto start taking Sasuke out to the park and ramen stand after his lessons and hopefully he will run into the boy there. Maybe I can even see if he needs a tutor. Fugaku started to chuckle to himself as his plans came together. Uzumaki compound Hayate stood inside his new room unpacking the clothes he had brought with him. After dinner he had brought Naruto to his apartment so the two could start bringing his possessions over. He was growing quite fond of Naruto already. While he could see the boy was not entirely trusting of him, yet he was talkative and friendly. He finished unpacking what they had brought and decided to check up on Naruto because he hadn't seen or heard from him in a while. Walking down the hall he noticed the light in the library was on and peeked inside to see Naruto on the floor looking through a scroll. Hey Naruto, what are you looking at? The blonde jumped slightly from the sudden voice but recovered and held up the scroll so Hayate could see it. It's one of the Fuinjutsu scrolls. They're all labeled on the inside of what order I should complete them in, so I'm trying to find the first one. He placed the one he had on the ground and picked another up, slicing his finger first. Isn't there an easier way to do this? he said as he waved his hand annoyed with the pain. Well, you could open up a couple at a time instead. Naruto held his thumb up so Hayate could see. But it heals too quickly for that. Hayate watched in wonder as the small cut quickly healed in a matter of seconds. Hiruzen had informed him that being a Jinchuriki Naruto would heal faster than most people and so far had never been sick. A cough broke him from his thoughts. Well, make sure you follow those scrolls in order. No matter how cool something sounds, if you try it before you're ready you can really hurt yourself. Don't worry Hayate-san, I will. Kenshin-sama said the same thing. Kenshin-sama. Naruto nodded. Seeing as he was the last head, I figure it was right to call him that. Hayate nodded and ruffled the boy's hair. While a good idea if he's anything like you and your mother, then he probably wouldn't like that. Naruto dropped his scroll and looked up at Hayate. Why, you knew my mother? More of her than actually her, but I spared against her a few times. Not many people practice kenjutsu in Konoha, so those of us that do know each other. Yaneko Nichan told me my mom was one of the best Konoha have ever had. Hayate sat down next to him and nodded. That she was. I was never fortunate enough to spar against her, but she did give me advice from time to time on my form. Did you practice the same style? No, but just because your style is different doesn't mean you can't give someone good advice. Especially when they're as skilled as your mother. Do you think I can be as good as her? Hayate chuckled. Only if you train hard and practice. I will, that's a promise, and I never break a promise. Hayate could see the passion in Naruto's eyes and smiled. Good. He stood up and started towards the door. I'm getting something to drink. Do you want anything, Naruto? No thank you. Naruto went back to looking through the scrolls. Each time he opened one he would read the first paragraph and correctly put it in line with the others. After a minute of searching he finally found the first scroll and began reading. Welcome to your first steps of learning Fuinjutsu. As you may or may not know, we Uzumaki thrive in this particular field. Fuinjutsu is one of the most diverse fields there is to learn, from simple things like storage scroll to more complex seals used to create barriers. The work will be difficult, make no mistake, but if you train hard enough the results can be endless. One of the major points of Fuinjutsu is correctly writing the formulas. One slip of the hand could render the whole array useless. Your first task is to train in calligraphy, practicing at least 1 hour every day for 6 months. At the bottom of this scroll you will see a box with seals around it, above that is different kanji. After your 6 months you are to draw those kanji into the box. If done properly it will glow green, if not it will glow red, and take another month before it clears itself. In that time keep practicing. Naruto let out a sigh and made a mental note to buy ink and brushes tomorrow along with a book on calligraphy. He decided to look through the black scroll too, seeing as he would not be doing much on the Fuinjutsu it might make his day more exciting. Cleaning up and properly placing the scrolls onto the shelf he started digging through the black labels until he found the first. However, this one was more of a list than an introduction. It gave basic exercises to do that would improve his body and a diet that would be both delicious and health. Of course he didn't see ramen on the scroll and that confused him. Ramen was the food of the gods, why would it not be included in a plan to make him stronger? He added that to a list of things to talk about with Hayate in the morning. 1 month later Naruto stood panting in his backyard covered in sweat and dirt. In the past month he had come out every morning to work out in the training area to improve his body. The list in his scrolls was extensive, and while the exercises were not complicated, the amount he needs to do was stressful on his young body. The first few days after he had started he couldn't even finish all of the drills, but now he could struggle through them. Hayate had told him eventually he would be able to do this routine and then some, so he pressed on. Grabbing his water bottle he walked back to the house for a shower and change of clothes. Ever since he got the scrolls and decided to show the world the greatness of the Uzamakis, his wardrobe had changed somewhat. Where he used to just wear random clothes that matched him now wore navy blue t-shirts with red Uzumaki crests on the back along with black pants and a pair of black shinobi sandals. He had trouble at first getting the clothes because none of the tailors wanted to sew the symbol on the shirts, thinking it a symbol for shinobi. Luckily Hayate explained the symbol was Naruto's clans and on the shinobi vest as a sign of remembrance. They still weren't happy about it but knew there was nothing they could do. Hayate and he had also started to get along better. While he was weary at first, his Nichan had told him she knew of Hayate and that he was a good man. So he started to open up to him and he to him. They weren't exactly close yet but Naruto knew it was just a matter of getting to know him more before they trusted each other completely. After changing into his clothes he went into the library and grabbed his book on calligraphy. His lessons were going well according to his Gigi, who also studied the art, and he felt if he kept up with his pace he would definitely be able to pass when the 6-month limit was up. He collected the book, brush, ink and empty scrolls to write on and headed out the door towards the park. While his grounds were nice to train on, Naruto liked background noise while he worked. It provided an extra element to his training. Hiruzen told him that when working it wouldn't always be peaceful and he should get used to noise while he worked. Walking through the village, Naruto ignored the glares and whispers, though he still didn't understand why this happened every time he went through the village. Once he got to the park he found a tree along the edge of the area and sat down, placing his things around him. Carefully he began going through his drills and slid his brush across that page. The hardest part of it for Naruto was keeping the pace. He wanted to go as fast as possible, but if he speeds up too fast he ruined the kanji and had to start again. What are you doing? Naruto looked up to see a boy his age standing in front of him. He was a fair-skinned child with dark black hair that stuck out behind his head and bangs that fell to frame his face. He was wearing a gray short-sleeved shirt with a high collar and dark blue shorts with matching sandals. He was looking at Naruto curiously. It's calligraphy. The boy moved closer and squatted down to look at the scroll Naruto was working on. What's it for? It's part of my fuinjutsu training. The boy perked up at the word training. Really? I've never heard of fuinjutsu. Is it like ninjutsu? Naruto smiled. Kind of. It involves making seals to do cool stuff like storage scroll, exploding tags and other things. The boy sat down in front of Naruto and turned the scroll to look at it. Cool. I'm training to be a shinobi to just like my dad and big brother. Are your parents shinobi? He watched as Naruto frowned. My mom was, but both my parents are dead. The boy flinched at the news and looked down. Oh, I'm sorry. They sat there for a minute in silence before the boy stuck his hand out. I'm Sasuke Uchiha, by the way. Naruto smiled and took the boy's hand. Naruto Uzumaki. So what other stuff do you train in? My dad's teaching me in our family's taijutsu style right now. Well, I don't have a style yet, but I train my body so I'll be in shape for when I go to the academy and will learn one there. Cool. The boys sat and talked for a while about different things. Naruto was happy he was finally making a friend his age. It was going well until Naruto noticed a woman walking towards them. She had similar features to Sasuke, but her hair went all the way down to her shoulders. She wore a shirt the same color as his but a black skirt that went to her knees and a cream-colored apron over it. Sasuke, who is your friend? Mom, this is Naruto. He wants to be a shinobi like me too. He's learning this thing called fuinjutsu. The boy said excitedly to his mother. Naruto started to feel nervous when the woman approached. The few times he started talking to kids his age to make friends, they were always taken away when their parents saw who he was. He was surprised when the woman looked at him and smiled. Well, that it is wonderful. I hear fuinjutsu is a very tough thing to learn. You must be very smart, Naruto. The boy blushed slightly from the praise. Well, I just started so I'm not very good yet. Well, still it is impressive to see a young boy learning such a difficult thing. Sasuke here could use improvement on his handwriting. She reached down and ruffled Sasuke's hair. Mom, stop, he whined and pushed her hands away. He didn't want to be embarrassed in front of his new friend. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little jealous of the interaction between the two. While he knew about his mother some, it didn't make up for the fact she was gone. Hey mom, can Naruto come to our house so I can show him my taijutsu? Naruto looked at Sasuke with wide eyes. His mother, however, nodded. Of course he can. Sasuke smiled and jumped up. Awesome. Come on, Naruto. He held his hand out to the blonde and Naruto sat there looking at it for a second before he smiled and took it. Sasuke helped Naruto collect his things and the trio headed out to the Uchiha home. Equals 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 Uchiha compound equals 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 equals. Naruto watched amazed as Sasuke went through the katas of his family's style. While they were the same age, Sasuke seemed more skilled than him. He had told Naruto about his family's style, the interceptor fist, and how it relied on speed and stamina to beat an opponent. Makoto, Sasuke's mom, had explained to him about their family bloodline, the Sharingan, and how it made it possible for them to anticipate a person's movements. Needless to say, Naruto was in awe of it and a tad bit jealous. Sasuke. Naruto. Dinner is ready. The boys turned to see Makoto waving at them to come in. He quickly ran into the house and towards the table. I know you two aren't going in there without washing your hands. The boys froze and started to chuckle. Sasuke led Naruto to the bathroom, and after they washed up, the two sat at the table. Makoto started to bring in the food and Naruto licked his lips at the delicious aroma. I see we have a guest. Naruto turned his head to see a man walking into the room. Yes dear, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto stood up from his chair and bowed to Fugaku. It is nice to meet you. Fugaku gave Naruto a smile and bowed his head. It is nice to meet you as well, Uzumaki-san. They both sat into their seats and they all started to eat. Naruto was trying hard not to devour the food as fast as possible. Ever since Agaya left, he hadn't had a good home-cooked meal like this. So Sasuke, how was your training today? It was good, father. I half the katas you taught me down. Fugaku nodded. Good. I expect you to have the rest down soon. We will start you shuriken training after that. The boy smiled and nodded excitedly while Fugaku turned his attention to Naruto. Are you interested in becoming a shinobi as well, Naruto? Yes, sir. That's good. The Uzamakis were a powerful clan. May I ask what training you are going through? Naruto put down his silverware and wiped his mouth. I've started doing calligraphy in preparation for Fuinjutsu and am starting a basic workout routine before I start taijutsu and kenjutsu training. Fugaku nodded sagely. Ah yes, if I remember correctly, the Uzamakis are famous for their skills in both Fuinjutsu and kenjutsu. What's kenjutsu, father? Kenjutsu, Sasuke, are techniques involving swords. Sasuke looked at Naruto wide-eyed. Cool. Naruto grinned and blushed lightly at the attention. The rest of dinner was peaceful and filled with talk about everyday life and questions about Naruto. After dinner, Makoto walked Naruto home and had to explain to Hayate, who Naruto forgot to tell he was going out, that Naruto had been with them all afternoon. Naruto went to sleep that night with a smile on his face. Today he made his first real friend and his parents were okay with him. Makoto had even told him he was welcome to come over whenever he wanted to play. Sasuke was having similar thoughts. His father had never been so nice to anyone he played with. Usually he said they were beneath them, the village elite, but today he talked to Naruto like he was a normal child. He even told Sasuke to invite Naruto over more to play or train because he would be a good rival. That made Sasuke happy and he couldn't wait to introduce Naruto to his big brother. Naruto reached over and slapped his alarm clock as it began to screech into his ear. He stood up and began to stretch. Despite the early wake-up, he was excited for the day's events. For the past 4 years he had been slowly but surely going through the different training scrolls in his library. His physical training had changed his 9-year-old body to almost solid muscle and he had become extremely flexible and agile. He walked over to his dresser and pulled on a black muscle shirt and black Anbu-style pants. After dressing, he walked into the kitchen to see Hayate eating a piece of toast. Morning, Naruto. Ready for training? Hayate and Naruto had become quite close in the past few years. Naruto often asked for his advice on training. While Naruto could be too active for Hayate at sometimes, the calm moments they had together were nice. Yup, I can't wait to start, Naruto said excitedly. Today was the first day of his kenjutsu training. While he wasn't going to start learning any techniques, Hayate was going to teach him the basics for him to practice. Alright, you grab something to eat and I'll meet you out back. He turned and walked out the back door. Naruto quickly made himself something to eat and had to keep calm so he didn't choke from eating too fast so he could start training. Grabbing his training scrolls and sandals, he slipped them on and ran to the backyard to see Hayate going through a set of drills with his sword. Naruto stopped and quietly watched as Hayate danced around the yard. After a minute he noticed Naruto and placed his katana back into its sheath. He walked over to a box on the ground and waved Naruto over. Alright Naruto, before you can get your own sword or start on learning the Uzumaki style, you need to get a feel for a sword. He reached down and opened the long box to reveal two dark wooden bakken. Both looked to be 40 inches in length total. Naruto looked at the weapons with a small smile and gentle reached out and picked one up. He ran his hands all across the wooden sword, looking for nicks or rough patches but found it to be smooth. It also seemed far heavier than it should be. Hayate noticed the confused look Naruto gave the sword as he lightly swung it around. I see you noticed the odd weight. I had these made with a piece of metal in the middle. It weighs the same as a standard katana. This will help you get used to the weight, and when we switch to real blades the weight won't throw you off. Naruto nodded and tried to reenact some of the moves he had watched Hayate doing moments ago. Hayate was slightly impressed with Naruto's movements. Most 8-year-olds wouldn't be able to things like that yet. Alright Naruto, break out your scroll and start your drills. I'll observe and give you advice from the side. The blonde nodded and pulled the scroll from his side. He placed the bakken down and unrolled the scroll to go over his drills. Since it was a beginner scroll, it involved him doing basic things like thrusts and different strikes multiple times to get used to them. For 2 hours Naruto stood in the backyard working on his grip and practicing the different attacks. His arms felt heavy and he was covered in sweat, but a smile never left his face. Alright Naruto, let's call it a day. Hit the showers and change or you're going to be late. Naruto nodded and ran over to the box and placed the bakken back down before rushing into the house. Peeling off his clothes he tossed them into a pile around his clothes hamper and ran into the shower to wash of the morning's grim. After he dried off he threw on his normal clothes, grabbed 2 scrolls and headed into the living room. Here's your lunch Naruto. Hayate walked in and handed Naruto a blue bento box. Thanks Hayate. He took the box and pulled one of his scrolls out and unrolled it on the floor. It had a storage seal drawn on it and Naruto placed the box over it before channeling his chakra into it and sealing the box. You've gotten good with drawing those. I can't tell the difference between yours and a store-bought one. Naruto's skill with Fuinjutsu had reached amazing levels. He could already create storage scrolls that could hold hundreds of pounds, basic illumination seals that would glow when activated like a flashlight, and, much to his and the Hokage's distress, explosive tags. Of course, with Naruto's drive and family scrolls, all of his seals were more powerful than regular ones. He had nearly blown up a large section of the compound wall when he was working on his explosive tags. Thanks, pretty soon I should be starting on the more advanced level ones. He grabbed the scroll and headed out the door for the village. He casually made his way down the streets, not even bothering to look at the villagers as he passed by. In the last few years since he befriended Sasuke, he no longer cared what anyone thought of him. The Uchiha and his family were nice to him, and that's all that mattered to him. He soon found himself in front of a large red brick building. It seemed worn from being around a long time but didn't have a sign of damage. It was a large circular building that rose into the air for 3 stories and had the kanji for fire inside a large circle. This was the Ninja Academy. He looked around the large training field that surrounded the academy to see many children his age standing with their families, some standing in groups together. He recognized some of the clan families from their fathers. He had met a few in passing while with his Jiji, but others seemed to be civilians. Finally his eyes stopped on a familiar dark-haired family. He started walking towards them and waved to Sasuke when he got closer. Sasuke had changed over the years in many of the same ways as Naruto. He was taller, but instead of muscle like his friend Sasuke had a lean body like a runner. His clothing had changed to a black short-sleeve shirt with a high collar and the Uchiha clan's crest on the back, a blue pair of shorts and blue shinobi sandals. Hey Sasuke, Makoto-san, how are you? The 2 raven-haired Uchihas smiled at him and Makoto bent down and gave him a hug. We are fine Naruto-kun, how about you? Ready for your first day of school? He nodded his head and smiled, receiving one in return. I just hope they teach us something useful and not waste our time with boring stuff, Sasuke said while looking around the yard. Naruto walked over and slapped him on the back. Don't worry about it, no matter what we learn we get to train after school anyway. He grinned at his friend and Sasuke huffed. He didn't like wasting his time with pointless things like school when he could be training. The only reason he didn't try and get out of it was that it let him hang out with Naruto more. Well, you boys better get inside and find a seat. Makoto gave them a gentle push towards the door and waved as the two disappeared into the building. The boys found their classroom quickly and walked inside. The classroom was rather large with a blackboard mounted on the wall right in front of the teacher's desk. The desks were mounted to the floor and had enough room for two to sit at one. They were all set up in an auditorium-style seating so every student could see the board and not have their vision blocked. Naruto looked at the room for a moment before Sasuke nudged him and pointed to an empty desk over by the window on the third row. After taking their seats, Sasuke zoned out looking through the window while Naruto looked around the room. He knew that many of the clans had children in his age group, so he decided to look for them. The first one he noticed was a girl with short blue hair with two long strands falling down to her chin framing her face. She was wearing a long-sleeved tan jacket, with white fur around the bottom and ends of the sleeves, and black pants that ended just past her knees. Naruto noticed her normally white eyes had a hint of purple in them, making them look lavender. That must be the Hyuga clan heir. He watched as she quickly moved to a seat and sunk down into it as far as she could. She was soon joined by a boy wearing a large light tan overcoat with a high collar hiding most of his face. The only features Naruto could see were a pair of sunglasses and his dark brown bushy hair. He wasn't sure who the boy was, but the Hyuga girl turned to talk to him. He shrugged and started to look around again and heard some snoring behind him. He turned around and saw a dark-haired boy with his head down on the desk. His hair was pulled back into a ponytail that spiked out, and Naruto noticed the Nara clan symbol on his gray short-sleeved shirt. Next to him sat a large boy was snacking away on a bag of chips. His arms were entirely wrapped in bandages that went all the way up to the sleeves of his green overshirt. He had a cream-colored shirt on underneath and Naruto could barely make out a clan symbol of some kind on it. He was wearing a white scarf that wrapped around his neck several times but didn't cover his mouth. His cheeks had small spirals on them and he wore a blue bandana like Hayate. The only difference was that he had a spike of brown hair coming out each side of his head. He's probably an Akamichi and the kid next to him a Nara. Gigi told me their families and the Yamanakas are all good friends. Suddenly the door was kicked open and a wild-looking boy walked in. He was wearing a gray over jacket with black fur around the edges and had the hood up. His right leg was wrapped on his thigh over his brown pants. His cheeks had a red fang painted on each and his black eyes darted around the room. Naruto noticed a small white puppy on the boy's head. He wasn't sure what type it was, but it too looked at everyone around the room and began to sniff. When Naruto saw the dog, he knew the boy had to be an Inuzuka. He watched as the rest of the children started to file into the room and take their seats. None of them really stuck out as clan members, but he knew most shinobi were originally civilians. Come on Ino, I want to get a good seat. Naruto looked to see a pink-hair girl pulling a blonde girl into the room. The pink kid was dressed in a red kipao dress with white circular designs on it and a pair of green shorts underneath. Naruto looked curiously at her bright pink hair. It wasn't a color he had seen before and it went well with her green eyes. The blonde girl caught Naruto's attention more though, dressed in a purple sleeveless top that stopped at her waist and a large collar that spilled onto her shoulders. Her arms were covered from her wrists to halfway up her bicep with white arm sleeves. Her stomach and legs were wrapped in bandages and she wore a purple skirt over them. She had platinum blonde hair that she had in a ponytail that went down to her lower back and sky blue eyes. Calm down Sakura, I'm sure we'll find seats. The two girls moved across the room and sat in the desk at the bottom of his and Sasuke row. He noticed the blonde look around the room and when her eyes fell on Sasuke and him they went wide. She quickly pulled Sakura to her and whispered in her ear. The girl turned and blushed before turning back and whispering to Ino. Naruto cocked his head in confusion and was going to ask Sasuke what they were doing but stopped when two men walked into the room. Both were dressed in the normal Konoha shinobi attire of matching dark blue pants and long sleeve shirts with green flak jackets signifying they were at least shunin in rank. One walked to stand in the middle of the room with a black book in his hand. He was average height and build. He has brown hair that was in a ponytail, dark brown eyes and a scar that runs across the bridge of his nose. All right everyone, please quiet down. He held his hand up for silence and after a moment all the students stopped talking and focused on him. Thank you. My name is Aruka but you can just call me Aruka-sensei. I will be in charge of teaching you for the next 4 years. This is Mizuki and he will be helping out with your physical training. The man moved forward and gave everyone a small nod. His build was similar to Aruka's and he had shoulder length, white hair that has a slight hint of blue to it and green eyes. After he moved back, Aruka opened up his book. Alright, I'm going to call roll. Please answer when I call your name. He began rattling off names alphabetically by last name. Naruto watched each child raise their hands as the names were called and made sure to catch all of the clan children's names. So Shino Aburame, Choji Akamichi, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shikamaru Nara. He looked down the row at Ino and Sakura. He didn't recognize Sakura's last name so he assumed she was a civilian. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto looked shocked when every girl turned and looked at Sasuke, blushing slightly. Here, he answered in a cool aloof manner, which made all the girls swoon and Naruto snort at his friend's obvious boredom. He watched Aruka make a check motion and then pause for a moment before he shook his head and cleared his throat. Naruto Uzumaki. His voice was lower than when he spoke the others. Here, he watched as Aruka made a check and didn't bother to look up from the page. Well, it seems even my sensei has a problem with me, isn't that just great? I had better tell Hayate and Gigi. Here, Naruto drew his attention back to the class to see Ino waving her hand. He had missed her last name but seeing how she was last and the Yamanaka heir hadn't been called yet, it was her. Shrugging and deciding to find out later, he focused on Aruka as he placed his book down on the desk. Alright, now today we're going to discuss the founding of the village. Both Naruto and Sasuke let out a groan. Naruto because he had already studied the village history and Sasuke because he could care less about history. 1 year later Naruto jumped back to avoid the overhead strike from Hayate and pushed forward when he landed, hoping to catch him off guard. Hayate, however, was far more skilled than the boy and brought his Bakken up faster than Naruto could see and thrust it into his stomach, knocking the air out of him and making him fall to his knees. Hayate placed the blade-like side of the Bakken on the side of Naruto's neck. I win, he grinned as Naruto let out a moan of disappointment. Hayate was a strict teacher and didn't go easy on Naruto. He figured it would help get Naruto stronger faster and increase his pain tolerance. So far in the past year since he had started his sword training, Naruto had 3 broken arms, 2 broken legs, 14 cracked ribs, a broken collarbone and a cracked skull. Normally this would deter a child from wanting to train more, but Naruto worked harder after each injury. It didn't help that Naruto healed at an unnatural speed, so these injuries barely kept him out of training. You know, one of these days, Hayate-sensei, it's going to be you on the ground looking up at me. He slowly rose to his feet and rubbed his stomach to ease the pain. You say that every day and I've yet to even feel pressured when fighting you. He smirked at the blonde and walked over to place his Bakken in the box before turning towards the house as Naruto mumbled under his breath. Naruto walked over and placed his Bakken in the box before closing it and bringing it inside with him. He placed it just inside the door and removed his sandals. He walked past Hayate, lying on the couch, and went into his library. It still felt odd for him to refer to it as his, but that's what it was. He walked and sat down at the desk and looked over the Fuinjutsu scroll he had pulled out earlier. His past year of study had gone better than he could have hoped for and he had moved to a more advanced level. Currently he was learning how to create a chakra suppression seals, paralysis seals and flash tags. He let out a sigh and looked at the clock on the wall above the door. He didn't have to go anywhere today till 2 because the academy was closed. Over the past year Naruto had been going to the class every day. He did all the assignments, read all the texts and took notes, but when it came to the test he would always fail somehow. He suspected foul play seeing as the teachers didn't like him but couldn't find evidence. Finally, after the last test, Naruto told Hayate about it and he informed the Hokage. After an investigation, it turned out that Mizuki was placing Naruto in a genjutsu secretly and making him see the wrong questions. He was fired and Hiruzen had decided to review all of the teachers to be sure there was no other mistreatment was going on. What really made him mad was no one would answer his question of why Mizuki did it or why the other teachers and civilians gave him such nasty looks. Hiruzen had told Naruto not to worry about it and that he would explain one day. That made him mad, but he walked off knowing he wouldn't get an answer from the old man. So for the past week he dived into his training trying to forget everything and clear his mind, but it wasn't working. He just couldn't wrap his mind around it and stood up and began to pace. He began to try and connect the dots of what he knew. Okay, let's see, all of the kids in class are told not to hang out with me but don't ever say why. So no one our age knows why, meaning it's something that happened when I was young, but what? I mean, the only thing I know of is when the Kyuubi attacked. He paused in his thoughts and remembered all the whispers he heard when people thought he wasn't listening, of calling him demon and blaming lost ones on him. Things started to add up in his head. He healed faster than anyone he knew, his whisker marks, and how he had better senses than everyone but Kiba. He quickly ran from the room and towards the door, barely stopping to put on his sandals. Hey Naruto, why the hurry? Hayate sat up from the couch to see the blonde shaking as he put on his sandals. You okay, Naruto? The boy didn't turn to answer, his mind moving a mile a minute as he ran out the door towards the Hokage tower. Hayate was worried about Naruto's actions, so he quickly put his sandals on and chased after the boy. Naruto ran as fast as he could, not even bothering to try and dodge people, just running right through them. He eventually got to the tower and rushed up the stairs and towards the Hokage office. The secretary saw him running and opened her mouth to speak, but Naruto threw the door open and looked at Hiruzen. Hiruzen was startled when his door suddenly flew open and raised an eyebrow when he saw Naruto standing there breathing heavily. His secretary stood behind the boy confused, and the Anbu had come out of hiding when the door flew open. Stand down, Naruto, what's wrong? He stood up and began to move around his desk towards the boy. Gigi, can I speak to you alone please? Fear and sadness were clear in his voice as he spoke. Hiruzen looked up at the Anbu and nodded to them. Taking the message, they walked out and closed the door behind them. Hiruzen guided the boy to a chair and then walked around to his seat. The two sat in silence, Hiruzen not sure of why Naruto was upset and Naruto trying to collect his thoughts. Gigi, do you remember when I asked you why everyone hated me? He didn't look up as he spoke. Hiruzen stiffened. Yes, I do. He was worried but waited to see where this was going. Does it have to do with the Kyuubi? Naruto heard a sigh escape the man's lips and looked up at him. Naruto, what I'm about to tell you is an S-rank secret, do you understand? Naruto nodded as the Hiruzen removed his hat. I am sure you know of the Kyuubi attack from school, but that story is a lie. You see, the Kyuubi is actually a beast made entirely of chakra. There is no way to kill it. Instead, you must seal the beasts away. He took out his pipe and began to pack it. When the Kyuubi attacked, we thought we were done for, but my successor, the fourth Hokage, gave his life to use a powerful jutsu that sealed the Kyuubi. He lit the pipe and turned to Naruto. The problem was that he had to seal the beast inside of a living being. It's in me, isn't it? His voice was small and quiet, but Hiruzen nodded. Yes, by sealing it in a child, your chakra coils undeveloped, they were able to handle the Kyuubi's chakra and grow with it present. He took a drag of his pipe. It was his wish that you be seen as a hero for holding the beast, but unfortunately people only see it and not you. I created a law saying that anyone who speaks of the Kyuubi will die. I did so hoping that you could grow up and have a normal life. Things didn't turn out so well, huh, Gigi? The man shook his head. No, he turned and looked at the boy. How do you feel? Honestly, I'm more relieved than anything. I've always wondered why people hated me and now I know. Do you hate them for it? The boy let out a sigh. Yes and no. I'm mad they are blaming me for something I had no control over, but at the same time I'm a constant reminder of what they lost that day. Hiruzen nodded and took another puff of his pipe. Why did he pick me, Gigi? Who can say, Naruto? He might have done it because he knew as an Uzumaki you would grow to learn Fuinjutsu and that would help you in keeping the seal strong. Or you could have been the only child there was in the hospital, we will never know. The blonde nodded and silence filled the room again. Do you hate Minato for what he did? I don't know, I mean sure it's his fault my life is like this but at the same time if he didn't pick someone everybody would have died. And Uzumaki does make a logical choice like you said. He rose from his seat and began to leave. I just need to be alone for a while. Gigi, Hiruzen nodded and watched as Naruto left the room. He didn't like lying to the boy but at the same time some things needed to be kept secret. As the Anbu walked in he noticed Hayate behind them. He knows now Hayate. The man let out a sigh and sat down from Hiruzen. How did it go, sir? Better than I could have hoped. He understands it's sealed inside him and he is not it. He doesn't hate the villagers but I doubt he's going to forgive them anytime soon. All we can do is wait and watch. Hayate nodded and let out a sigh. He knew Naruto was going to want to let out a lot of steam tomorrow.